Today, we are talking about getting into action. Welcome to the TheUpside Podcast, where we help you get unstuck in life and business by elevating your thinking and provoking meaningful change from the inside out. I'm your host, Theresa Flood. Thank you for joining me today. The biggest gap between where you're at and where you want to be is not in what you know. It is in what we implement every single day. We do not have a knowledge gap. We have an action gap. And so many times we confuse learning with progress. And you are listening to this podcast because you're a learning-based person. Otherwise, you'd be listening or doing something else, but you're a learning-based person. I am too. And one of the things that we can oftentimes get in the trap of is going to all of the classes, reading all the books, listening to all of the messages, and never implementing and never taking action. We just get so consumed, so stuffed, so full of information, and yet we're caught in paralysis. And we feel good about ourselves. We feel good about what we're learning, and yet the results don't change. The gap is still there because we're not getting into action. So the answer isn't always in learning more. It's on acting on what you already know. So I want to give you an example, case in point, about the importance of action when it comes to learning, because the truth is that learning and doing are a two-sided coin, meaning you don't truly learn something until you get into action and do it. So if you don't know this about me, I'm a crime junkie, not as in I like to go out there and commit crimes, more like I like to read about them. I love a great murder mystery, whether it's watching a show or reading a book or listening to a Dateline podcast. I do have the premium edition, so I can skip the ads. That is how much I am a crime junkie. And I started, I think, getting into this as a young child because one of the very first book series that I got into as a elementary school kid was Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. So if you were in the 80s growing up, you probably were a Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys fan. And so that really began my love of true crime. And so all throughout the years that I started listening to or watching Matlock and Perry Mason, which if you are younger than me, you may not know these things. But again, defense attorneys who would, in the very last moment, when their defendant is about to go to prison, would uncover the real culprit at the defense table, right? It was very dramatic. So I thought, I want to be a defense attorney. And all throughout my life, I have loved pretty much all of the detective shows, all of the detective books, all of the Datelines. Enough case in point on that. Here's the truth. Nobody, not one single soul, nobody, not you, not me, not my kids, not my mother, not my husband, nobody is going to hire me to be their private investigator. Nobody is going to hire me to be their defense attorney. Nobody. Why? Because I have never taken action on any of this. I am a sideline quarterback. I watched all the stuff. I've listened to all the stuff. I have all my hot sports opinions around all of it. And yet I have never actually done anything. So I'm completely worthless when it comes to this. It is purely just a hobby. Learning is the same way, right? You have to do to learn. You have to take action. We're not going to be very excited if we go to have open heart surgery. We ask our surgeon, how many surgeries have you performed? And he said, you are my first live specimen. Yeah, that's not really going to go over well. We have to learn and we have to do at the same time. I want you to think about your GPS when you're putting in directions. Oftentimes, we don't take action because we don't know all of the steps. Your GPS, though, when you put in that you want to go to 123 Main Street, it doesn't tell you all of the steps. It just tells you your next left turn. Then it tells you your next right turn. Sometimes I go, I kind of want to see the big picture here. I want to know. And you can go do that, obviously, in your app. But so much of life is like a GPS. You just need to take the next action that you know. Don't try to know the entire roadmap or the entire plan. By taking action, by making movement, that positions you to be ready to see the next course of action. I love this quote, imperfect action beats perfect inaction. Let me say that again because I kind of stumbled. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction. And I suppose that all inaction could be considered perfect because you can easily do that perfectly. And yet action, a lot of times we get into paralysis. We don't want to do it unless we feel ready. We don't want to get into action unless we think it's going to be perfect. And the truth is it doesn't get good until we try. It doesn't get good until we get the reps in. It doesn't get good until we practice. We have to get into action to be able to learn. Jim Collins, in his book, Good to Great, talks about the power of a flywheel. And a flywheel really is an energy conductor. And what happens with the flywheel is if you go push it to try to get it into momentum, into energy creation, you push it and nothing happens. Second push, nothing happens. Third push, nothing happens. Fourth push, nothing happens. Fifth push, nothing happens. Sixth push, eventually it starts to move just a little bit. And then all of a sudden you continue pushing and momentum starts to build. We oftentimes believe that our breakthrough is going to come because of one massive action. That's rarely ever the case. It feels like it was one massive action, but we didn't look at all the tiny little pushes that happened over and over and over. The consistent small actions that happened over time eventually created the momentum. So action is all about creating the momentum, and it's small actions over time that matter. So when you're learning, you've got to be doing the small actions that are going to create the momentum that are going to get you to the results. The other lie that we buy into so many times is that action follows confidence, meaning once I'm confident, then I will get into action, then I will do it. But first, I got to work on my confidence. It just doesn't work that way. And there's a previous episode that I recorded about how we get to confidence, and it always starts with courage. Every single time, confidence comes after being courageous in something. When you add in the consistency, which is just commitment on display, and then you add the competency of learning, that will create the confidence. Action creates confidence over time. It's courageous action, it's consistent action, it's learning and doing simultaneously. That's going to create confidence for you. Inaction always creates fear. Why do we so many times feel paralyzed when we're fearful? Because inaction, not only is it a result of fear, oftentimes it creates the fear. If you will just get into action, you watch the fear step away. So here's my challenge for you today. What knowledge are you full of that you haven't acted upon? What do you know to do that you are not doing? One of the reasons that we create a Upside training guide every single week, if you don't know that this exists, every Thursday I'll send you an email with a downloadable teaching guide. And this is a reflection worksheet. You can use it to teach the teams that you're leading. You can use it for your own personal reflection. And the reason that we create that, though, is so that you can take action on the things that you're learning. It takes time. It takes purposefulness to do that. But when you do that, it's going to compound your accelerated results every single time. So I'm going to encourage you. You probably already know what you need to do. You have enough knowledge to change your trajectory. You have enough knowledge to change your results. So what are you going to do today? What action are you going to take today? What small, consistent steps are you going to make every single day that are going to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be? An inch of action will take you closer to your goals than a mile of intention. So instead of just having great intentions, let's be people that take courageous action. Be sure you're subscribed at TheResaFlood.com, and we'll get you that training guide this week. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I'm so grateful that you hung with me, that you stuck around for this. I hope it's making a difference in your life, in your business. And as always, when you're investing in your growth every single day, it is going to yield you great returns. Be encouraged, my friends. And as always, keep living on the upside. We'll see you next week.